Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters, with whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication. In part 19, we began our look at the idea of fornication. As we learned, Strong's defines this word as to act the harlot, indulge unlawful lust of either sex, or figurative practice idolatry. The first two definitions refer to sexual behavior, while the last speaks figuratively of idolatry. Of course, all of this comes together to give us a bigger picture from which to draw our understanding. As we learned earlier in this series, the word Babylon is of Hebrew origin, meaning confusion, taken from the root meaning to overflow, or by implication, to mix. The idea of confusion and mix points to the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, where the mix is good and evil. Remember, the tree of knowledge and tree of life are the same, but presented separately for understanding. And the difference between them? The tree of knowledge denotes the old covenant law of God, while the tree of life denotes the spiritual nature of this law, which is charity or love. When we walk in the true love of the Spirit of God, there is no confusion, for knowledge will certainly vanish, but love never fails. The idea of Babylon includes unlawful lust. As we learned, this goes back to the Genesis parable and the temptation of Adam and Eve. When we compare the three components in the tree of knowledge, we find they correlate with the three components of all that is in the world regarding the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. As stated in the previous study, when pride or the inordinate love of the self enters the equation, our natural and normal desires become unlawful lust. Google states, lust is a strong desire or craving, often associated with sexual desire. It can also refer to a passionate desire for something else, such as power, wealth, or food. Google defines desire as a strong feeling of wanting something. It can be a longing, a craving, or a wish. Desire can be directed towards anything, including objects, experiences, or people. It is a fundamental human emotion that motivates our actions and drives our behavior. Note the last statement regarding desire. It is a fundamental human emotion that motivates our actions and drives our behavior. This is why I say that we were created as creatures of desire. For desire is simply another way of referring to the emotion of love, which we could also call affection. Since God is love, and we are made in His image, our existence on this planet is driven by this emotion, whether we realize it or not. In the beginning, we have the Garden of Eden. The word Eden comes from the root meaning pleasure. Google states, pleasure is a feeling of enjoyment, happiness, or satisfaction. It can come from a variety of sources, such as physical sensations, emotional experiences, or intellectual pursuits. This, of course, falls in line with love, desire, and affection. And because we are creatures of desire, we seek pleasure. I believe the Garden of Eden symbolizes the divine and universal principle of sowing and reaping. After all, what else is a garden for? Since Eden means pleasure, and pleasure connects to love, desire, and affection, then the principle of sowing and reaping was established by our Maker to oversee and direct our desires. Hence the reason for John's explanation in 1 John 2:15 through 17. Since we are creatures of love, desire, and pleasure, then the desires of the flesh and eyes are natural and normal until the third component of the pride of life enters. The ESV renders pride of life as pride in possessions, while the NIV renders it as the boasting of what he has and does. As we see in this, it matches with our understanding of love, desire, and affection. What is pride? The inordinate love of the self. In other words, I love me, and those things I've attached to me more than God and you. No wonder Jesus taught that the two great commandments are to love God with all of our heart, mind, soul, and strength, and our neighbor as ourselves. The message of the cross, or self-sacrifice, is the core essence of the Gospels and directly opposed to this pride. It's quite interesting that the Bible uses fornication regarding Babylon and the kings and inhabitants of the earth, which in the natural realm speaks of sexual promiscuity. Google states, promiscuity is the practice of engaging in sexual activity frequently with different partners or being indiscriminate in the choice of sexual partners. It can carry a moral judgment, and the definition of what constitutes promiscuous behavior can vary between cultures and individuals. So, in simple terms, fornication is a mix between two persons or components that shouldn't be mixed, whether literally or figuratively speaking. And so we come back to the tree of knowledge or law of God. Since Paul is clear about the law, stating that it is holy and spiritual, then what is the other component mixing with the law, and therefore ending in corruption and confusion? It's pride. What else would it be? I believe this is the proper view of fornication. Fornication in the natural realm includes the idea of union or two becoming one. For this reason, what is often considered a casual sexual act is not really casual at all, for it always leaves behind a host of emotions in its wake. Because of this, many casual acts become long-standing affairs and lead to broken marriages. Figuratively speaking, the same is true in the spiritual sense. For this reason, Strong, speaking figuratively, mentions idolatry in his definitions. Google states, an idol is a physical object that is worshipped as a god or divine being. It can also refer to a person who is admired and revered to an excessive degree. Fair definition, but it leaves out the fact that we can make idols of anything. Our jobs, positions, money, talent, food, and especially our ideologies. Still, with that being said, when you strip away all these things, beneath all these idols lies the one true idol of the self. This is one reason why I see the beast rising out of the sea of humanity as the carnal nature, typified by its description as a leopard, bear, and lion. As stated before, a leopard, bear, or lion cannot be anything other than what it is, because that is its nature. In agreement with the carnal nature are the 7 heads, denoting the 6 things God hates, and the 7th, which is an abomination. These are the characteristics of the carnal mind proceeding from the carnal nature. And the 10 horns? This points to the 1 hour of Revelation 17:12, which points to the hour of trial in Revelation 3:10, which is the hour of his judgment or judgment of Babylon in Revelation 14:7, and in Revelation 18:10, 17, and 19. This is why Jesus said that no one knows the day or the hour that the Son of Man comes. My judgment is different from yours due to where we both stand in the process. This is why God, through Christ, is ultimately the only lawgiver and judge. Some believe that the dragon of Revelation 12 and the beast of Revelation 13 point to something more specific than the carnal attributes I described. But the reason I see it this way is that we cannot shift the blame for our carnality to anything other than ourselves. Shifting blame is the most prominent characteristic of pride. A very good example of this was seen in the recent presidential race and election. So, back to the idea of the mixture of good and evil or tree of knowledge. Why did God warn Adam not to eat of it or he would die? Because the idea of death has little or nothing to do with a physical passing and everything to do with the carnal mind and our present state of being. That's why Paul tells us in no uncertain terms that to be carnally minded is death. So, when it's all said and done, who or what does Babylon represent? God's people in captivity to the mindset on the flesh and therefore remaining under the law and not grace. For this reason, we read, "Come out of her, my people, lest you share in her sins, and lest you receive of her plagues. Brothers and sisters, the judgment of God begins with his people first, because we are called to be the light of the world. Therefore, the content of Revelation is a picture of this judgment on you and me, and not the world. Yes, the world suffers judgment too, due to the principle of sowing and reaping. But the priority is his body, is it not? For this reason, it behooves us to understand what the Lord judges. What does he judge? Not the self, but our excessive love for it. Once we are stripped of this prejudicial pride, then we can truly love others as ourselves. At this point, I will end this study and this series. I sincerely hope it has helped you. Please feel free to like, comment, or subscribe, and thank you for being a part of Grain of Wheat Publishing. May God bless you in your walk with Christ.